but it's all interconnected. As you'll see, this is all what we call the Amarna period. It's an unusual period for Egyptian history. What you'll see is we're going to have 3 kings in a row who don't leave any children. And that leads to turmoil. Who's going to become king? The first of those 3 kings was Tutankhamun. If you'll remember, in his tomb, 2 fetuses were found, probably miscarriages of Ankhesenamun. Both little girls. One was about 8 months, one was about 5 months. But Tutankhamun did not leave a successor. But we know that Ai becomes king of Egypt. Now, remember, Ai started his career at Amarna. He was in with the pharaoh, Akhenaten. There are scenes of him on his tomb wall at Amarna, when he thought he was going to die there, at Amarna, of him and his wife. They're worshipping the Aten. So he was kind of politically correct. He was worshipping the Aten, he was in with Akhenaten, but as soon as Akhenaten dies, it's Ai who says, let's forget this new religion. Let's go back to polytheism. Let's change all the ways. He has Tutankhaten change his name to Tutankhamun. Remember, he wasn't born Tutankhamun. And then he says, we're going back to Thebes. So he's the one who's calling the shots, and he's sort of guiding Tutankhamun in the early days. Now, but he becomes pharaoh. He doesn't last long. As I say, by Egyptian standards, he's an old man. You know, the life expectancy is perhaps, from birth to death in the ancient world is about 30s or so. He's 60s. He lasts only 3 years. He is king for approximately 3 years, between 3 and 4 years, and then dies and is buried in his tomb. Now, what's important is where his tomb is. And you'll see it's politics that determines it, not looking for the best site necessarily. Ai is buried in the Western Valley. Now remember, 18th dynasty, Thutmose I has the first tomb in the Valley of the Kings. And from him on, the 18th dynasty kings are buried in the Valley of the Kings, that main valley. Until Amenhotep III, the great king who has Egypt at its greatness, Amenhotep III decided to put his tomb way off in the Western Valley, a spur of the Valley of the Kings. That's where Ai has his tomb. Now you might wonder, why does he have his tomb off with Amenhotep III? Why is it there? Well, it's a political reason. He didn't begin that tomb for himself. That tomb was begun for Tutankhamun. Not only did Ai take Tutankhamun's wife, he took his tomb. You see, as soon as you became king, you started building your tomb. And when Tutankhamun makes the journey from Amarna back to Thebes, he has to pick a site for his tomb. Now, Ai is his advisor. Tutankhamun's maybe 9 years old by now, perhaps. And Ai suggests, probably picks, I don't mean to say suggest, he probably tells him, the Western Valley. Why the Western Valley? The answer is, it's a statement. And the statement is this. Remember, Tutankhamun's father was a heretic. He was viewed as the trouble. He was the problem. Nobody liked Akhenaten in Thebes. So when Tutankhamun's coming back, he's got to show, I'm a legitimate king. I've got royal blood in my veins. But he can't identify himself with his father, because he's the heretic. That's sort of bad. So Ai makes the decision, we'll bury you next to Grandpa. Amenhotep III is his grandfather, the great traditional king. So Tutankhamun's tomb is selected as right next to his grandfather's. It's a statement saying, I'm a traditional king, I'm not like my father. But Tutankhamun died suddenly, perhaps murdered. His tomb wasn't finished, barely started. So he was hastily buried in another tomb that was at least further along in construction in the Valley of the Kings. So he's quickly buried in the Valley of the Kings, the main part, leaving Tutankhamun's original tomb empty, and that's where Ai is buried. He takes Tutankhamun's tomb and his wife. The tomb is interesting, by the way, for another reason. Ai's tomb is quite similar to Tutankhamun's. Quite similar. Almost as if he wants to identify himself with Tutankhamun. Now, I think there's a reason for that. Tutankhamun must have been a very popular king, returning everything back to the good old days. Everybody's temples are going to be open again, the gods are back. So Ai is saying, I was with him. For example, On one of the walls in Tutankhamun's tomb, there's a scene of 12 baboons. These are 12 baboons that guide the boat of the solar god through the sky. Ai has the exact same scene on his wall. And if I had a bet, I would say it's the same artist who painted it even. If you look at it, it looks like the same hand. I've looked at it closely. I think it's probably the same artist. So Ai is saying, I'm establishment too. I'm a good guy. He even has a sarcophagus like Tutankhamun's. Right? So there are many, many similarities that Ai is trying to identify himself with Tutankhamun. The only thing he doesn't have on his wall is Ankhesenamun. She doesn't appear on the wall of Ai's tomb. We don't know why. Maybe she's dead by now, but she's not there. So Ai only reigns for 3 years, dies. His tomb is robbed eventually. His name carved off the wall, as we've discussed. But next, Horemheb is the next pharaoh. Now, remember what I said, that Horemheb didn't leave children either, right? We're going to have 3 kings in a row with no children. Tutankhamun, no children. Ai, no children. And now we've got another pharaoh who's going to have no children, Horemheb. What do we know about Horemheb? Well, the first is he's a military man, a career military man. He started his career probably under Amenhotep III, right? And when Akhenaten moved the capital and sort of let the military go, didn't support the military, Horemheb didn't go to the new capital. Horemheb stayed behind at Memphis. So he was probably pretty much languishing as Akhenaten lets the military go downhill. Horemheb is just sort of hanging out, not doing much. So he wouldn't be a supporter of Akhenaten under any circumstances. I mean, it's the old thing. It's sort of like the hawks and the doves, and Akhenaten is the dove, and Horemheb would certainly be the hawk, wanting strong military presence. So Horemheb began his career under Amenhotep III, probably languishes under Akhenaten for about 17 years. Remember, Akhenaten rules for 17 years. Right? But then Tutankhamun comes into power. That's when we see Horemheb really go up. His stock goes up. He has the title of King's Deputy under Tutankhamun. It's a very important position. And he's a military man, strong law and order. He marries a woman named Mut-Nejemet. It's a great name, by the way. Mut is mother, Nejemet is sweet. So it's like sweet mama. That's what her name means, right? Mut-Nejemet. Some people think that she was the sister of Nefertiti. Nefertiti, the wife of Akhenaten. So some people think that Horemheb is trying to show, well, I'm a little bit related to the royal family. I don't think she really was the sister. It's the same name. Nefertiti did have a sister named Mut-Nejemet, but it doesn't mean that this is that Mut-Nejemet. It's a common name. But he marries this woman, Mut-Nejemet, right? And during his reign, when he becomes pharaoh, he's going to institute lots of new policies. Now, think about it. He's a military man. He is what we would call a law and order candidate, right? Straight arrow, firm. There's a wonderful statue of him in the Metropolitan Museum of Art. It was carved of him when he was the king's deputy, when he was working under Tutankhamun, right? And it shows Horemheb as a scribe. Now, Horemheb, it's even possible, just possible, that Horemheb was illiterate even. That he couldn't read and write, because most Egyptians couldn't. But it shows him as a scribe. It's a position everybody wanted to be kind of seen as. He's sitting cross-legged. He's got a papyrus roll on his lap, right? And along the base of the statue and on top of the scroll are hieroglyphs. And basically, it says, I'm the king's deputy, and it says, I'm a straight arrow. I'm a law and order candidate. I'll give you a little quote from the statue, what it says. It says, now remember, he's an important official under Tutankhamun. It says, I am the recorder of royal laws, who gives direction to the courtiers. Wise in speech, there's nothing I ignore without forgetting my charge. So he's law and order. He sets things right. Interestingly, by the way, the statue talks about the gods. Now, this is under Tutankhamun. It shows how quickly things are going back to normal. Horemheb is associating himself particularly with the god Thoth, the god of writing, the god of really law and order, right, keeping the records. So things are going back to normal, and Horemheb is all for it. So Horemheb had this career under Tutankhamun, and then he becomes the next pharaoh. Now, he does some really strange things. almost unique. One of the things he does is he acts as if all the subsequent pharaohs up to Amenhotep III never existed. Now, what I mean by that is this. Horemheb ruled for about 28 years, roughly. If you look at the records that Horemheb's scribes kept towards the end of his reign, it says he ruled for 58 years. Now, what's going on? Horemheb is totally ignoring the reigns of actually 4 pharaohs. Let me explain. He's pretending that this heresy period, anything connected with Amarna, when they tried to change the religion, when the military was allowed to go downhill, he is pretending that it never happened. He will wipe out the records of Akhenaten, the heretic, also Tutankhamun, because he was the son of the heretic. He'll even wipe out Ai's records, right? Because he was an advisor to Akhenaten. He will wipe out every trace of this heresy, and he will say, my reign comes right after Amenhotep III. So he's really adding, in a sense, 30 years to his reign, because if you figure out who ruled when, Akhenaten ruled for 17 years, Tutankhamun for about 10, so that's 27, and then we've got Ai, 3, you got about 30 years there that he's just saying, never happened. It's a real 1984 type thing. He's rewriting history.
Wow. That's crazy. So, this guy, he's pissed. Let's just call it what it is. He's pissed. It's one of those situations where you know things are going wrong, but you don't have the power and authority to change it. Then when you finally come into some power, you're like, okay, all right, remember that crap you did a couple of years back? Yeah, got you. So he's remembering the downfall of Egypt during the season of the heretic king. He gets in power and he's like, nah, you, goodbye. Your son, goodbye. And then he thinks about it, it's like, oh yeah, and you sat back and let it happen, so you too. So he gets rid of 3 kings from the record, royal records, tries to scrub them out of existence, so there'll be no trace that there were bad times in between his reign and the last great king. But as is in history, people tend to rewrite it for their own purposes. But we can learn from these mistakes. So, yeah, they should be remembered. When certain people in history make mistakes, yeah, we should remember it. For example, they talk about tearing down statues of Confederate leaders in the South. Is it Confederate? Yeah. So they talk about tearing down statues in the South of racist military leaders. Why? Why do that? Here's my thinking, y'all. All my people, come close. That's something I want to say. Here's my thinking. We pull ourselves up by the bootstraps. We look out for each other. We grow stronger as a nation of black Negroes in America. Nobody will ever know once we're gone what happened unless we leave records. A transcript, a computer file, that can be erased, that can be destroyed, but it's a little harder to destroy a whole 9-foot statue. So what I'm saying is, let's not get rid of the statues in the South. Leave them up. Don't get offended because they're standing in front of the courthouses. No, 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 no. What I'm saying is, let's handle this a different way. Leave the statues up. Let's embrace our knowledge of the past. Let's strive to be better. And every time those white racist people go past that statue, they're going to remember. They're going to remember why that statue is there. And then they're going to have to deal with the reality that we're better than them. Are we better than all people on the earth? I'm not saying that. But to be racist, to judge somebody by the color of their skin and not the content of their character, as Martin Luther King said, that's just wrong. And we, as a culture, as a people, need to be better than them. So I say, leave the statues up. In fact, let's go a step further. Let's build our own statues. I mean, after all, this is the United States of America. Under the Constitution, we're supposed to have equal rights. So don't petition to get the statue taken down. Let's petition to get our own statues of our people put up. Y'all, you understand what I'm saying? This is one of them situations where you have to fight fire with fire. I'm not saying go blow stuff up and burn people's grass and burn crosses in the middle of the street. But I'm saying this is their culture. This is what they're proud of. And they're putting it on display. So far, you've learned that we as black people, ever since Africa, before Egypt, we have accomplished great things. A lot of the things that we've accomplished has filtered down to the current society, and people of all walks of life enjoy these amenities. They enjoy these luxuries that they have. They enjoy this better quality of life. What I'm saying is, instead of trying to clap back at them by destroying their monuments, let's erect our own. Let's give respect to our ancestors. I heard a story. I don't know how true it is, but I heard a story that the original Statue of Liberty was not what it is today. It was a different one. It had something to do with, I think they said it was a black woman holding a lantern, and the government at the time didn't appreciate that the French, their allies, would give them a statue of a black woman. So they sent it back, and they had to redo it. But I would say in all predominantly black cities, erect our Statue of Liberty. Let's remember our past, where we came from, how we got here, how to better ourselves, and let's show these ignorant people that we have culture. Let's remind them, just like they like to remind us by keeping up these statues of these racist people, by having a President's Day. Oh my goodness, I can't stand that with a passion. You gonna give us a a Black History Month, which is one of the shortest months in the year, first of all. And second of all, we got to share it with President's Day. Everybody by now should know that majority of the presidents were racist slave owners. Their families owned slaves. And it's been well documented. So why? Why on earth would you continue to do that to us? But see, everybody not paying attention to that. But they paying attention to, oh, well, they got this general statue of this general up, and that's a slap in the face to black people. That's just a reminder of slavery and everything that we had to go through. That's a reminder of the struggle. Yeah, you're right. It is. But we can do better. Just like this one pharaoh who was a military man, he got in office, and what did he do? He started erasing the records so that there would be no trace that there were any bad times in Egypt's history. How are people supposed to learn if you don't remember the bad times? How are you gonna know right from wrong if everything's always good and all the bad stuff is always covered up? Come on now. We better than that. So what I'm saying is, let's learn from our past. Don't destroy their stuff. Come on now. Let's not be spiteful and hateful. Don't destroy their stuff. Let them racist white people have their statue. What I'm saying is, let's attack this a different way. Let's show them where they came from. Let's show them that we have a culture, we have a history, and that if it hadn't been for us, if it hadn't been for the mammies that took care of their kids, breastfed their children, if it hadn't been for us, they wouldn't have the wealth, the generational wealth that they have today. So let's erect statues of our ancient people. Let's erect statues of our traditional, proud black leaders, inventors, entrepreneurs. Hell, that one statue, and I'm pretty sure somebody knows what I'm talking about, that one statue of Liberty, the black Statue of Liberty, yeah, let's get that back. Let's have that built and placed in every predominantly black neighborhood. Every predominantly black city should have one of those. Now, I'm not saying white people can't live there. Sure. But if we got to deal with the bull crap that we've been dealing with since our people came to the United States, yes, it's uncomfortable, but let's fight fire with fire. They keep trying to tell us, well, it's our constitutional rights. They let the Ku Klux Klan do what the hell they want to do, but yet and still, they kill off the leaders of the Black Panthers. No, no more changing the history books. No more erasing. Let's show them how intelligent people act. Let's show them that we, as a nation of black people, can be very intelligent, very articulate, and that we don't have to fight them with our fists. We can be proud of our accomplishments, and we need to showcase those accomplishments. And if they feel a little uncomfortable, oh well. We're United States citizens. We have a right to our expression. We have a right to voice our opinion. And that being said, let's continue with our story.
And if you look at the king's lists, you know, the list that all the pharaohs kept, you will never see Akhenaten, Tutankhamun, or I on those lists. There's even one other pharaoh that Horemheb wiped out, a mysterious pharaoh. We're really not sure who he was. We know his name, Smenkhare. He ruled for only 1 year as co-regent to Akhenaten. And we don't know who he was. Was he Akhenaten's brother? Was he Tutankhamun's brother? We just don't know. And some people think, remember I talked about Tomb 55, that tomb in the Valley of the Kings, that some people thought maybe that's the mummy of Tutankhamun, but it was a mix of things. It had a shrine for Queen Tai, it had this, it had that. Some people think that may be Smenkhare. But Horemheb doesn't talk about him either. So there are really 4 kings who are disappeared. Right? So Horemheb is going to sort of wipe out all traces of the Amarna revolution. It's quite interesting. Now, he has some new policies that he's going to institute. The first is, he wants priests to be integrated into the army. You know, this is like the first military chaplains. This is the beginning of it. And the reason is that I think, I mean, this is my suggestion, Horemheb saw that the priests were so powerful that they could actually force Akhenaten to get out of Thebes. You know, when he's trying to close down the temples, and they're saying, wait a second, Akhenaten actually had to move out of Thebes, if you'll remember, to his new capital. Horemheb saw that. Horemheb knows priests are powerful, and why not integrate them into the military, having them as an ally, right? So he's thinking he's not going to let what happened to Akhenaten happen to him. Also, he's an army man. He knows the army very well. He has 2 commanders for the army. He knows the army is going to be big. It's a bureaucracy, and one person can't watch it all. So he has a commander for the north and a commander for the south. Because remember also, communications were difficult. You didn't just pick up the telephone. You know, a couple of days, a boat going north, boat going south. So he's shaking things up. Now he also has building projects. Remember, every pharaoh wants to build, wants to show that he's a great builder. And he goes to Karnak Temple, which is the greatest temple on earth, in Thebes, and he builds a pylon for himself. Now remember, a pylon is a huge gateway, and they're huge, you know, they're like 100 feet high. And the reason you build a pylon is that it gives you a large surface that you can write on to tell about how great you are. And they almost have the same scenes. You always have the same scenes. The king is smiting his enemies. The king is making offerings to the gods. And he actually builds 2 pylons called the 9th and 10th. All the pylons at Karnak are numbered. He builds the 9th and 10th pylons. But he does it in an interesting way. Remember, these are people. These are real people we're talking about. These are places that you can still walk today. Think about what had happened. Akhenaten had built his temples at Karnak. Then he moves to Thebes. Then he moves away from Thebes to Amarna. Akhenaten's temples are at Karnak. And now Akhenaten dies, and everybody's going back to Thebes, and you still have these temples to this god, the Aten, that nobody really particularly likes, right? It's a reminder of a bad time. Well, our man Horemheb builds his 9th pylon out of the blocks of Akhenaten's temple. He takes down the temple. Right? It must have been a kind of sore, open sore, reminding people of hard times. So he takes all of these blocks, you know, like 40,000 of them, takes them down. They're smaller blocks. They're not like pyramid blocks. They're about, I'd say 2.5 feet wide. You know, 2 men can lift one fairly easily. And he takes all these blocks, which are carved with scenes of Akhenaten worshiping the Aten, and he uses them as the fill inside his 9th pylon. He packs the pylon inside, so he doesn't have to quarry stone. It's a cheap source of stone. You know, it's only a couple 100 yards away, and he builds his pylon out of Akhenaten's temples. Now, there's a kind of curious irony to all this. By taking down the temple and putting him inside his pylon, he preserved Akhenaten's temple. He preserved it. And in the 1920s, when there was restoration work on Horemheb's pylon and they had to take down his pylon, they discovered all these blocks. And that's when they tried to reconstruct on paper Akhenaten's temples by using a computer. As I was telling you, you photograph each block, and you try to say, well, we've got the head of a pharaoh. Where is a block that has the shoulders of a pharaoh? Maybe it matches. And that's how we reconstructed what Akhenaten's temple looked like. But it's because...
Wow. Well, that was interesting. So, through discovery of so basically what happened was they were trying to discover or to uncover one particular person's construction projects. But in the process of doing that, they discovered somebody else's. It's like, I would explain that as the closest thing I could get to that. I would have to explain that as taking credit for somebody else's work. You know, which in America happens a lot. Black people create something, they invent something. White person, racist white person finds out about it, sees how good it is, figures out that he can make a killing financially, and he slaps his name on it. The black person might have invented it, but he's going to take the credit for it. Why? Because in one point in American history, black people were considered as property. So no matter how intellectual superior we were to them, they would never give us credit. They could have done it themselves, but they were too lazy. So, oh well. But dang, even after, and this really pisses me off, even after these ignorant ass people created a law just to say we accept the fact that black people are human beings. We've always been human beings. We've always been human beings. So y'all had to have a meeting in Congress just to come to the conclusion that black-skinned people are humans. What gave us away? Was it the two arms? Was it the two nostrils that we had? Was it the broad nose? I don't know. What was it? The ears? The earlobes? Was it the fact that we have two